Hi everyone, welcome to today's IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm broadcasting to you live from Central Europe, Budapest, capital city of Hungary. Hello members, hi Sahil, hi welcome new member, Aigul, Sana Bayeva, welcome aboard, hi Begzad. Aigul, send me an email so I can hook you up with the members perks later on, okay? You get access to the 6 practice exams that we use in these lessons. Thanks for your support. Hi Harminder. Hi Begzad. Good to see our members joining in. Today is a members chat only class. It's one of the other perks of being a member. You get more focused attention during these classes, and of course these classes are requested by you. Hi Naveen. Hi Kisi, and welcome Danny from Japan. Students, as usual, materials are from aehelp.com. So for lots of help with the academic IELTS, definitely check us out there. Members, you get special discounts for the premium course as well if you want to join up for the whole course. So let me know. gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Look for our logo, Academic IELTS Help, on iTunes and your Play Store. It's a free app, and you can also get our books if you want to have them in paper form in front of you, probably cheaper than printing them with your own ink and paper, from Amazon. AE Helps Academic IELTS, GE Helps General IELTS. And you can email me, Aigul, that's the email that you want to send me an email. Just say, I'm a new member, hook me up with my perks, and I'll do that, okay? So send me an email, Aigul, to adrian@aehelp.com. Also, a couple other members that joined in the last few days. So, hi, Jason G. Thanks for the salutation. Okay, so just a quick peek. Our websites, when you're looking for them, aehelp.com looks like this. Click that big red button, join up. And General IELTS, green background, looks like that. Click that big red button. Join up. All right. Live streaming, Central European time. Members, keep it in mind. I do send out comments on the community board. A couple members, actually, 2 members, were asking about diagrams, especially manufacturing diagrams for task 1. How do I write about it? Truth is, there's a lot of different kinds of diagrams in task 1. So it will always be a little bit different, but you certainly can practice a system and some important vocabulary. Welcome, Paula Dennis. Welcome aboard as well. So same thing, Paula, send me an email, okay? Tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, no classes. We're releasing some new HD videos and creating new products for you. Then we're back on the 13th with speaking part 3. So keep that in mind. All right, let's get to today's assignment. Here we go. IELTS Task 1 Writing. Members, I would like lots of interaction here from you. Give me your thoughts. Give me some example sentences. So let's do this together. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task, no more. Write at least 150 words. The diagram below describes the steps involved in making rock wool, which is used in insulation and construction. Describe the stages in this process. Members, can you see this diagram clearly? Is that clear for you? Can you see the words? I can make it a little bit bigger, I think. Let me just, here we go. Stretch that to the maximum. All right, hopefully you can see it now. If it's too bright, I can make it a little bit darker, maybe just a touch darker. There we go. Okay. Yep, I've got you, Naveen, so it's too bright. Is it better now? A little bit darker? Do you want a little bit darker still? Go a little touch darker like that. Okay, how's that? Looking good. All right, so there you have it. That is a interesting, somewhat complex process to create rock wool. Does everybody know what rock wool is? If not, you might be able to guess by thinking of the 2 words together. So rock, obviously rocks, right? Like stone, right? Coming from a mountain. And wool, wool is usually from sheep, the clothing, right? Rock wool, if you imagine, it's like wool, so like the fabric, but made out of rock, okay? Yeah, I think you're right, Aigul. I think they might make fences out of it, but they definitely insulate houses, so they put them in the walls to keep in heat as well. It's used in building. It's also used for plants, okay? So we use them for plants instead of soil because rock wool holds water. So that's what rock wool is. If you're kind of weirded out by that, don't worry, you can Google it later. And figure it out. Yeah, you use it for plants. You can put plants into rock wool, Sahil, instead of soil. All right. So let's go back to the diagram. What's our first step here, students? So what should we do first? So just like with any other task one. So what's my step number one? What do I need to do? And I'm really hoping some members now will tell me very clearly what I need to do. Sahil, only half of it. I need the other half. I keep reminding the students, yes, it's the overview. And thank you, Begzod, for giving us the full answers. So we start with the overview. Some students ask me, is the overview different than the introduction? Like, do I need a paraphrase and then the overview? No, okay? The paraphrase is the overview, and the overview is the paraphrase with details and the main kind of information that we can see, okay? So we paraphrase the question and give some detail. Thank you, Bagzod, with more details. Don't just paraphrase, okay? So overview, paraphrase the question and give some more detail. Okay, so let's do that. So here's the question. Again, the diagram below describes the steps involved in making rock wool, which is used as insulation in construction. Describe the stages in this process. And then here we have a little bit of a peek at this. So paraphrase this for me, members. How can we say that question in a different way? I'll bring it back to the question to help you out a little bit. I'll do the paraphrasing as well. Focus on your own paraphrasing, and then let's compare, okay? Let's compare what we do. So okay, so there's my paraphrase. Now I'm going to add some more detail to it using the diagram. So how many stages are there? There's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, roughly 11. Okay, so a little bit more detail. Let's see what you have. Paula Dennis says, the graph illustrates the way to create rock wool, this material which is used in buildings. Okay, building manufacturers is a bit awkward, Paula, so you want to avoid that. Naveen says, the diagram illustrates the levels of producing an insulating material, rock wool, which is usually applied in construction. Good, Naveen. I would use applied in construction instead of applicable but it's not bad, okay? Levels, I don't know, Naveen. I think instead of levels, I would use phases or stages or steps, okay? Sahil says, the diagram demonstrates the stages involved in producing rock wool, which is used as the insulation in building or in construction, not manufacturing. Construction here means like physical buildings, like building an office or a house. At first glance, the process consists of 11 stages. Sahil, that's good. So you added that as an extra sentence. That's fine. That works. Okay. Harminder says the figure reveals the different steps used in making rock wool, which is necessary for buildings such as houses, offices. And it has 11 steps to make this building supply. So Harminder, a little bit more. Kisi, the diagram depicts the 11 processes of rock wool, or 11 steps in the process, because it's one process, Kisi. So 11 process is a bit misinformation. 11 steps in the process, making insulation. Okay, good. One more. Danny, the provided flowchart represents the manufacturing process of rock wool, which is used as insulation material in the building process. Very good, Danny. That's a very nice finish, which is used as insulation material in building process. Very good, Danny. Excellent. That's a nice, clear, high-level, accurate finish. Okay, so pay attention to each other as well. All right, so we're not done the overview yet. It's too simple. Okay, I used blueprint instead of diagram. It works. The blueprint illustrates the 11 stages needed to manufacture rock wool used as insulation in buildings or in the construction of buildings. Okay, sure. And then we need a little bit more. So we need to say one or two pieces of information about what we can see right away. Okay, what can we see here right away? So what is an immediate piece of information that we can notice? Okay, what do we notice right away here at first glance? Okay, Jason, that's pretty decent as well. So Sahil says the process starts from one point here, which is the raw material, the ore, right? Hopefully you can see the writing fairly clearly. And ends with what, Sahil? You're going in the right way. Paula, good. So you said there are two ways, right? So we see that there is something happening here, and then it kind of comes back to this process, but again, it deviates and goes into two unique end products, right? So that is something that we see, that there's more than one way. So there's more than one approach in creating rock wool, and there's more than one type of product in the end. Okay, that's what we see. So that's the first eye shot. I mean, you should see very clearly, you should see this here, okay, and you should see this here at first glance. Absolutely. So that's what you want to include in your overview. Okay, definitely. So create a sentence with that. Please write your sentence with that, members. Okay, that should be included. Hi, Arcana, welcome. Join in. You're not too late. Just at the overview. Okay, so write that. Write the sentence. How do you describe that? Don't worry about mistakes. I'll correct you. I'll do the same while you do it. Okay, then we'll compare. All right. Keep writing, students. I'm just going to take my overview and move it a little bit down on my document so that it makes more sense. While I do that, keep writing, keep putting down your thoughts. All right. Marwa, welcome. Marwa says, at first glance, Marwa, get that A big at the beginning there, okay? So Marwa says, at first glance, the raw material can be used to produce two different types of products in two different methods. Marwa, I'm always so pleasantly surprised by the way you're able to articulate what you see. It's really, really close to that of a native speaker. Absolutely. Actually, I'm lying. It is that of a native speaker. So very good, Marwa. At first glance, the raw material can be used to produce two different types of products in two different methods. Absolutely. I'll be honest with you, Marwa. I almost like the way you expressed that more than I did. That's why I love these members' classes. Igul says, the process of creating rock wool is divided into two stages, in which one creates brick, the second ends with sand. Okay, I get where you're going with that, Igul. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about the sand. Maybe you'll correct me where you're getting that from, but I see the formed product as one and the granulated wool as the other. The granulated wool is not quite the same as sand, okay? So, but you're right, it's pieces, so it's granular. It's pieces of rock wool, as where these are kind of like tables of wool or formed products, sure, okay? Begzod says, at first glance, it becomes clear that in the initial phase, raw materials go through two different processes, which finally lead to the production of two products. Yeah. If we want to avoid production and products, Begzod, like I did as well, we can replace one with creates. So finally lead to the creation of two products. That way it's less redundant or repetitive. Okay. Naveen says the process starts by extracting the molten slag from the ore, and after a series of manufacturing processes, mineral wool and final product are formed. Pretty close, Naveen. I might stick that more in the beginning of my analyses rather than the overview, but you're not far off. That's debatable. Okay, we could argue about that. You're still on path for a great IELTS band score if you write that for the overview. So here's mine. This blueprint illustrates the 11 stages needed to manufacture rock wool used as insulation in the construction of buildings. Initially, it is noticeable that there are different methods of producing rock wool, as well as different end products, formed product and granulated wool. Okay, different end. I'll replace that with results. In my case, just to be a little bit less redundant. All right, Kisi, I'll read yours one more. At first glance, the blueprint has two main processes, because it's two, Kisi, processes, so that's where you need the ES. One is fiber production, another is formed product and granulated wool. Okay, sure. Let's go back to this diagram. Now, of course, in the IELTS, you're not going to have color to help you, so you won't have this blue versus orange. And I see where some of you are going with the fiber production. So the first result here is fiber production, and then fiber production can be either used for formed product or granulated wool. So here, it's going to be black and white in the real IELTS, so be very careful. You have to visually see this clearly. So we have one process here, and then we have a split here, right? And then we go back to this here. So you want to visually simplify that for yourself so it's clear, okay? I purposefully chose a little bit more of a complicated manufacturing process. I know this is what a couple members were looking for. Begzod, I think you were one of them. And I can't remember who was the other person, but we had one other member asking the same chat or same request class. So, okay. So how should I divide this? So my next step now is to label my points. So what I'm going to say, right? So what I'm going to say. So I think, Kesey, you have the right idea. It makes sense to divide along here. This planning step in task 1 is very important. So in your 20 minutes, if you have to, use 2, 3, even 4 minutes for this part, because the clearer that you plan these main points of comparison and description, the faster, easier, and higher band your task 1. So this is a very, very important step before you write the analysis. Okay, very, very important step. So I think making this imaginary separation here is a smart idea. Okay, and then we can start with the raw material, which is put into the smelting furnace. Okay, that's a smelting furnace. And then what's my next step? My next step is this here. Okay, what kind of vocabulary should I use for that, members? So for this point 2, right away, even before I begin writing, I should realize that there's a specific type of conjunction that I need. Okay, I need a specific type of conjunction. What do I need to use there to continue my description here? Separated is not. I wouldn't use split. So if I see this kind of division here, we'll see it here as well. This is the other point where we're going to observe this. Naveen, you're on the right track. I wouldn't go with not only but also, but Naveen, you're very close. It is a correlative conjunction that I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about not only but also. There's a better correlative. That's right, Begzod. Either or is what comes to my mind immediately, okay, as the right way to describe that, okay? So either or definitely should come to mind in these two parts here, all right? Now, so either it moves this way, right, through this process, or it moves this way, so we describe that. Then this is our step 3 here. This is our step 4 and our step 5, right? So those are the clear ways to move through the diagram. What other vocabulary should we be thinking about? Both and, Paula, is not bad. Okay, both and is not bad. Either or is number 1 for sure. Okay. Of course, the other really important vocabulary is next, after that, third, fourth, last, finally. So all of those are very important. Aigul, thank you. That's probably number 2. So whether or. Let's get the right spelling on that. I mixed the combination. Aigul, it's not weather like the rain or sunshine. It's whether or. Okay, so whether or is going to be the other one. So whether or. Sure, so either or, whether or, those are good for those separations. Okay, let's move through this. So just keep this in mind. I have to erase it, otherwise you won't see what I'm putting up here. So let's start with number 1. So let's write this together. Begin with number 1, okay? So the or is used and goes into the melting furnace. So describe number 1. We can have differences in the way we write. I'll correct what you write, so be brave. Just put it out there. You can go 1 straight into number 2. We can overlap. You can move a little bit ahead. It's up to you. If you make a mistake, I'll let you know anyway. So just begin writing. I'll do the same, and then we will compare each other's writing for accuracy. And of course, all of our viewers, pay attention to what I'm saying, but also look at the chat, because we have some very high-level members that are absolutely band 7, 8, band writers, and they have some really good alternative ways to express these steps or these points. Okay, so that's to all of our viewers. Pay attention, not just to me, but pay attention to these members, and members, of course, pay attention to each other as well. All right, so number 1, the raw material, also called ore, okay? Ore, O-R-E, is what is mined from the earth. There's iron ore, there's gold ore, silver ore, so all of the raw rocks that contain different elements is called ore, all right? O-R-E. So now we are into the analysis, 5 points, okay? Firstly is okay, students, but try to learn different ways to begin, not just firstly. So don't begin every single task 1 with firstly, please. Okay, Bagzod, that's a good example. The process begins with raw material, comma, ore. Nice additive description there with the commas. Putting it into the smelting furnace. Now, smelting furnace obviously heats up the ore, all right? Sahil, when looking at the diagram in more detail, it is noticeable that raw material ore is placed into the smelting furnace, not putted, placed into the smelting furnace. After the formed product goes into 2 different processes, not stages, Sahil, 2 different processes. So placed instead of putted, and processes instead of stages, Sahil, but close, okay? Okay, I'm going to keep it simple. It's not a bad idea, students, to keep your first sentence of the analysis simple and without mistakes, just so it's very, very clear. Okay. Initially, the raw material ore is heated in a smelting furnace. Don't forget to use verbs that explain what is happening in the process. Sometimes the diagram will tell you the word, so it will actually include the word heated beside the picture. Sometimes you just have to clearly infer that. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right. All right, Naveen says the raw material ore is poured into the smelting furnace to get molten slag. Nice, Naveen. So there you are using verbs, poured, okay, into the melting furnace to get molten slag. So I like it, Naveen. So you're paying attention to those verbs. Just make sure the information is accurate. The whole melting process begins with heating and smelting of the ore in a furnace. Danny from Japan. Include the raw material. So make sure, Danny, not to forget the raw material in your first step of the analysis. So you can put that into your sentence, Danny. You can say the whole melting process begins with heating and smelting the ore in a furnace. Okay, and that will make it just a little bit better, a little bit more clear for your reader. Because, of course, your reader's thinking, what are you melting? So put that in there. All right. Yes, we'll go back to the picture. I know you want to keep going here. So there is the picture, and this is the more critical number 2 here. Now we're going into that, so we're describing that. If I don't catch all of your comments, members, don't worry. I will try to get different people at different times Now we have quite a few members, so it's tough for me to get everyone. Otherwise, we'll be here for a very, very long time. But I'll do my best to be fair. Worry not. Okay, so number 2, I recommend using either or. Use your correlative conjunctions. So oops. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit complex for you here and really show you how advanced you can make your writing. So keep going with your own. I will check. Don't worry if it's higher up in the chat. I will get back to it. Okay. So, oops. Let's stop doing that. All right, let's see what you came up with and then I'll explain mine. Welcome, Dinesh. Good to see another new member joining in. Dinesh, make sure you send me an email as well. All right, let's see if some of our members have come up with some different ways to describe this second process. No, okay. Kisi, that's the product, the air-cooled slag or the molten slag, but you're on the right track. So Kisi says, after the ore is melted in the furnace, it either becomes air-cooled slag or molten slag. So Kisi, the simpler way, so I'll put the simpler approach here and take yours and just correct it. So after this, the material becomes either air-cooled slag or molten slag. Okay, so that's just an extra sentence to show an easier approach. I took a more tricky approach to explaining this, and I'll show you how I did that in a moment. Okay, but Kisi, you're on the right track. Just make sure that you have the right grammar and words. Sahil Singh says the product is then cooled with the help of air slag to form. Yes, I mean, I know students it would help to know what the meaning of slag. When you melt ore, it becomes kind of like a sludge of rock and other materials before they are separated, and that's your slag. Okay? I'll show the picture one more time, Danny. Absolutely. I know with diagrams you have to keep looking at the picture. So this is a product. Okay? This is a process. These pictures are the processes. Okay? This is a product. This is a product. Okay? This is a product here. Okay? It helps if you know the word slag. Slag is the sludge. It's the goo that comes out of the furnace. All right? So Preeti says, then the product is goes into a heating furnace into either two phases, either melting slag or air-cooled slag. Yeah, if you're thinking this is a process, you're going to get into a little bit of trouble because it's not a process, okay? When you have this word air-cooled, that's an adjective. You should be able to figure out that this is an adjective and this is a noun. So adjective noun, that's probably a product, not so much a process, okay? I know it's a little bit tough, but hopefully that will help. Okay, Preeti, I'll check yours out. Just give me a moment. Preeti, I read yours before. The process starts with raw material or placed into a melting furnace. After that, it goes into two different processes. You can do it like that, Preeti. Just be careful with the word "friends" doesn't make sense, and burning doesn't make sense. So that's a mistake there. Careful. Okay. That's okay, Sahil. I know it's tough, but that's why we chose this. That's why the members were curious about this, because it's a little bit tough. You have to be very careful not to confuse a product with a process, okay? And I know it can be confusing because here it's packaging, which is obviously a process, not the product, okay? So watch the verbs versus nouns, okay? All right, Bagzod says, after being heated, the product goes through either the molten air-cooled slag or becomes either the molten air-cooled slag. In the former, the process continues to the slag idle, which then puts the material into an arc furnace or an electric arc furnace. Bagzod, you're on the right track. You're writing well. It's just you missed that as well, that's a product and not a step. All right. Naveen says, the byproduct of the smelting furnace is either molten slag or air-cooled slag. The former goes into the slag ladle, while the latter meets the melting furnace. Naveen, that is a beautiful piece of writing for this process. So other members, take a look at what Naveen wrote. That is a Band 9 expert level English writing for describing this. It's very well done, Naveen. The byproduct of the smelting furnace is either the molten slag or the air-cooled slag. The former goes in the slag ladle, while the latter meets the melting furnace. Naveen, excellent. Good for you. All right. Okay, so good. We're on to that process now. And then this here is where we can use the, I think it was Argul that gave us that advice. Right? I'll go back, but I'm sure it was one of our new members. Aigul, sorry. I mispronounced your name there. I think it was Aigul that said it. It was either Aigul or Paula. I think it was Aigul. Aigul said whether or. So here in this step, okay, so let's bring it down to this step here, the fiber production. This is where you could really use whether or. Whether or, all right? Try to form your sentence with whether or for that step. And before we do that, let me just jump back here and show you how I composed this second step. So here we go. So I used a semicolon. Semicolon can be a very useful punctuation in process essays. You'll notice the semicolon here. So after exiting this step, or after exiting the furnace or melting, the resulting product, byproduct, as Naveen said, is good as well, goes through one of two processes. So this goes through one of two processes with the semicolon. This semicolon tells the reader that I'm going to describe each process in a little detail. So if it is molten slag, we don't need the comma because I have then here, but that's the idea. Then an idle transports it to an electric arc furnace, comma. It's very important, the punctuation here. But if it is air-cooled slag, it moves to another melting furnace. Okay? So that's another way you can do it. So using the phrase one of two processes and then describing them with conditionals. If this product, then that, but if this product, then that. It's a very nice high-level composition for clear description of either or, okay? All right. Pradeep says, when do I use a comma or a semicolon? Pradeep, that's a big question, and I would love to go into it in great detail, but the main idea here is use the semicolon when you give further information describing both of the steps, okay? There is a full 1-hour class on comma use on our website, but that's a big, big question, so I can't get into it this class, Pradeep. Go on to the website, Pradeep, and I can give you the link for that video, okay? So send me an email on that, and I'll send you the link for that video. All right, so let's go to the third step here. And again, students compose this one. So we're going to the fiber production, okay? Fiber production. I'm going to write this while you do the same, and then we'll compare. All right. Let's see what you've put up there. All right. Jason G says, after melting the ore, the products run through either the molten slag or air-cooled slag. I have a little bit of lag on my end here. I think, Jason, you're still on the previous process. And goes to a slag ladle or melting furnace. It's not very clear, Jason. You'd want to rewrite that to be more clear, okay? Naveen says, let me go back to the picture while you're thinking of that. Naveen says, the semi-processed material from both slag ladle and melting furnace in the first stage meets the fiber production, though the material from the slag ladle processed in the electric arc furnace before rolled out under rollers to get the fiber. Okay, Naveen, a little bit off, but you're on the right track. Let me try to correct that. So the semi and process should have a dash between to make it one word. So the semi-processed material from both slag ladle and melting furnace in the first stage meet at the fiber production. Period. However, material from the slag ladle is processed in the electric arc before it is rolled to produce fiber. That would be the clear way, Naveen, to write that. Paula, whether the product was transformed by the electric or melting furnace, the final material obtained as fiber, which is relevant material in the process. Okay, the end of it's a little bit awkward, but the beginning is very good, Paula. Let me try to correct that. So whether the product was transformed by the electric or melting furnace, the final material, I would say the resulting material, final material will be at the end of it all. So the resulting material is processed in the fiber production. That's the way I would write that, Paula. So the beginning is good. One more time. Whether the product was transformed by the electric or melting furnace, the resulting material is processed in fiber production by rollers. Paula, if you do it that way, that would be fantastic. Very, very nice writing. Okay. Harminder Dinza, moving to the next stage, the formed products from the previous stages, slag ladle or melting furnace, move into fiber production. Harminder, that's good too. You don't need a semicolon in that case, okay? In that situation, the semicolon's not used, but good try, all right? Danny from Japan. In the fiber production stage, it is clear that the byproduct can be produced in two different ways, in the electric arc or melting furnace. You don't need to say furnace twice, Danny. Okay? Absolutely, Paula. That's one of the benefits of being a member. You get a little bit more attention and more corrections, but that was good. Of course, members, don't forget, you can look back at these lessons if you miss your correction the first time, and you can check the time. So it's at 47 minutes, and then you can hear it again just to make sure you know what you're doing. Okay, so now here we're moving from the collection to these two. So this is our fourth stage here. We now need a sentence to describe this fourth stage. So moving from the fiber production into collection, again, there are two possible directions for this production or manufacturing process. All right, you write this step 4 in your words. I will do the same as you just heard me say in my words, okay? Be original, all right? Be original. Aigul, I like that. It's very nice and simple. After the two processes are finished, they go into fiber production. They both meet at fiber production, okay? All right. Let me compose this a little bit here, and then we'll match and compare what we write. So, again, write your own. I'm going to try to stay a little bit quiet so I don't disturb you while you're thinking, okay? All right. So Harminder says, now the material goes through collection to form wool or packaging. Harminder, you're close. Just keep it simple and don't repeat your words. So Harminder, now the material goes from collection. You don't need the through. So goes from collection to forming wool. So not form wool forming, just forming wool, or granulation and packaging. Okay. Naveen says the collected fiber is either processed by a pendulum method and then formed to get the formed product, or it can be made into rock wool after granulation and packaging. Naveen, I really like yours because you simplified it, okay? You're basically taking that whole last piece and putting it into a nice, condensed, clear conclusion. So the collected fiber is either processed by pendulum method and then made to get the formed product, or it can be transformed into rock wool after granulation and packaging. I'm trying to avoid, Naveen, any repetition of words, so not repeating the word formed and not repeating the word made, so finding synonyms for that. But otherwise, it's very nice, Naveen, very nice indeed. I like it. Okay, keep writing, students. Keep getting your thoughts out there. I'll write that final stage as well. All right. Naveen says, I'll take care of that word repetition. All right. Yeah, that's what you want to do, and that's what you practice at home, Naveen. So once you write it down, you review it, and then you replace the words that are repeating. Absolutely. Good. Sahil, don't worry about it. Diagrams can be tricky. As you can see, it's quite challenging for me to describe and write the diagram while explaining and correcting you as well. So it's challenging, and that's why you have to practice it. But don't worry about it. That's what we're doing. That's the idea of having these lessons. Begzad says, in the next phase, the product collects, and then the product is collected. So Begzad, that's where you can use the passive voice, okay? So in the next phase, the product is collected, and then whether it moves to wool forming process called through the pendulum method or granulation, I don't think I would use the whether in that case, Begzad. It's a little bit awkward. So I would say in the next phase, the product is collected and then either moves to wool forming processed by the pendulum method or granulation. Okay, that's much better, Begzad. Aigul says, next, the substances are gathered in the collection. Again, collection and gathered, it's just repetition, Aigul, so one or the other. Next, the substances are gathered, which can move one of two ways. Okay, so a little bit, you're overcomplicating, Aigul. You want to be careful not to overcomplicate, okay? And you don't want to repeat words, even if they're synonyms, like gathered and collection. You're thinking right, you just need to express it a little bit better. but you're using good vocabulary. Begzod, the passive, the products are collected, or aigul, the substances are gathered. It's both great. Those are both good. Just careful how you use them, okay? Don't make mistakes there, all right? So this is what I have for these final stages. Moving on, the fibers are collected, and depending on the end product, go one of two directions. Again, that semicolon, wool forming or granulation packaging. In the former direction, meaning the first, okay, which is the wool forming, the resulting material is packaged into formed product, and the latter, it is finalized as granulated wool. Okay. All right, so that's great. I think you can stop there. If you really want to stretch it, you could throw a summary in, okay? So here, the summary, you don't need to write summary, of course. To summarize, there are different approaches to making either a formed product or what was that last one there, or granulated wool. In the end. Okay, so something simple. Okay, I definitely wouldn't do anything too complex for the summary. It's not necessary, but it might give you that little bit of extra to put a plus 0.5 band on your writing score. To summarize, there are different approaches to making either a formed product or granulated wool in the end, okay? Or at the end of this process. I'm going to go back to what I said there, Kisi, processes, because there is more than one process here if we look at it carefully. All right. Okay, students, I'm going to read my essay just to make sure that there aren't any huge mistakes. Have one more quick look at the diagram. So I'm looking at the diagram. I can see this direction. I see this direction. I see everything coming together here. And then I see from the collection these two directions. Then I review what I wrote. Definitely do this at home, students. So this blueprint illustrates the 11 stages needed to manufacture rock wool used as insulation in the construction of buildings. Initially, okay, when you start that way, you should have a comma. It is noticeable that there are different methods of producing rock wool as well as different end results, formed product and granulated wool. Initially, the raw material ore is heated in a smelting furnace. After exiting this step, the resulting product goes through one of two processes. If it is molten slag, then an idle transports it to an electric arc furnace, but if it is air-cooled slag, it moves to another melting furnace. Whether the product exits the first, so whether the byproduct exits the first or second method of manufacturing, it moves into fiber production where rollers create the next form of the material. Just so I'm not repeating myself. Moving on, the fibers are collected and depending on the end product go one of two directions, wool forming or granulation packaging. In the former direction, the resulting material is packaged into formed product, and in the latter, it is finalized as granulated wool. Summary. To summarize, there are different approaches to making either formed product or granulated wool. I don't like the summary because it is redundant or repetitive of the overview. You shouldn't repeat the overview. To summarize, these complex Processes require the application of heat and mechanical manipulation to create the end products. So that's a different and better summary. It's a complex process. And what are we using? Heat and mechanical manipulation, right? We're moving around the slag and we're putting it into rollers and we're collecting it. So that would be a better summary. Let's see what you've come up with. So Paula says, should we write the summary or conclude? Some teachers recommend not write this in task 1. Paula, yeah, like I say, you don't have to write it in task 1, but if you can write something clever like this for this summary, don't conclude. Conclusion, Paula, and a summary are not the same, okay? Conclusion is in task 2. That's for a persuasive essay. There's more information in a conclusion than a summary. Summary is used for an expository essay. Conclusion is used for narrative, persuasive essays, okay? So they're different. Conclusions and summaries are not the same, all right? Careful. But you don't have to include it, Paula. However, if you have time, if you're good at what you're doing, you might want to get a little bit more points, okay? Danny says, hence it is clear from the visual... okay, hence it is clear from the picture that there are two main ways of manufacturing wool. Yeah, Danny, it's not bad, but again, I would get rid of that because just like me, you repeated the overview. Make sure the summary is not a repeat. Begzod says, in summary, it can be inferred that there are various ways of making the final formed product of granulated wool. Begzod, that's okay, but again, it's a little bit redundant with what we've already said. All right. Okay, students, this one. So pay attention to what is used to create the product. Heat, cooling, water, pressure. So often when you see these diagrams, you'll notice that there are different elements being used like pressure, heat, cooling, shaping, and several others. And that can be useful for your summary. Okay? All right. Sahil says, to sum up, this process of producing rock wool is very clearly structured and different stages are needed to form different products. Good, Sahil. I would say different products before form products, okay? All right. Thank you, members, for being very active, for being present in the class, making some great contributions. I'm super happy to see so many of you catching on and being very clever. Jason, to summarize two different production processes, the product undergoes two different production processes. One more time, Jason G. To summarize, the material undergoes two different mechanisms of production to obtain the final products. So I had to reword that quite a bit, Jason. You might want to listen back and see how I did that, okay? All right, new members, make sure to send me an email so I can hook you up with the perks. Welcome aboard. Remember to send me requests for future classes so we can do those together. And have a wonderful rest of your weekend. It's been a pleasure to teach you. Remember, check us out at aehelp.com, which is this website here with the blue background. Click that big red button, join, and get our exams, interactive courses, writing and speaking help. And if you're doing general IELTS, green background, gieltshelp.com. Click that big red button there. All right. I wish you all a fantastic rest of your day. If it's late in your country, sweet dreams, get good rest. Wake up energized for a good Sunday ahead. Bye for now, everyone. See you next week. Speaking part 3. Bye.